What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Tam and Barrett Universe Super Show, a radio call-in show where you can be the special guest live over on the channel. If you have questions and you're live over on YouTube or Twitch, all you got to do is over on Twitch type an exclamation point, ask a question. But basically, it is I have a ticket system inside of my Discord called Ask Tam a Question. Open up a ticket. Write down your question, come be on the show, and me, you, and Bear are going to talk about your question for about 15-20 minutes. Would love my good friend, my new best friend, Barlow, who did not know that he was going to be on the show quite this quick, I'm sure. What up, Barlow? How's it going, man? Oh, have you so quiet? Will you talk again for me?
Oh, he's so loud for me.
Hello.
The duality of man.
I had him turned down for the
How's it
webcam
going?
event. It is
That makes
good. I'm gonna put it to where you are on screen. You had a question. Hit me with your question.
Yeah, so this question is for both of you.
Good.
While I've got two players who have both topped events here and done pretty well historically, this is a question I wanted to kind of present because I'd heard it a lot in the community, both recently and in the past. So I've heard a lot from players who are kind of doing pretty well at events. Maybe they've gone to 2 or 3 regionals. They've gone like 4 and 3. They've done pretty decently, but they haven't quite hit that top cut. Maybe they're losing a win and in. They feel like their events are going pretty well, but they're not quite breaking that barrier, breaking that plateau, and elevating themselves to like that top level. And I guess my question to you guys is, what would your advice be going into the biggest regional, presumably, of the season for those players who are really looking to kind of break into that top cut for the first time?
I love this question. I know Tam could talk about this for hours, so I'll go first.
Please.
We're going to refer to this as the hump. This is the hump that I think most people talk about when you hit that decision of, I'm not just a casual player. I like this game. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to go to a regional, and you go, and you don't really care how well you do, but you get so close, and you make that decision. You're like, I think I do want to try and aim a little bit higher. And I'm doing consistently well at these regionals that I go to, but I'm not, like top 32. Yeah, I get some more points, but it doesn't get me into that. I don't get to sit at the table with everybody else. It's not that same caliber. It's the hump. And I have one easy answer, and I only know this from results. I know this how this worked for me. Obviously, Barlow, you're no foreigner to this idea because you have top cutted multiple times. I'm the biggest Barlow guest fan out there. You can ask him yourself. The reality is, it didn't change for me personally, and even my friends in my circle of like players, until you sit down and you actually dedicate time to practice this game. It is a muscle, it is a skill, it is a sport. We are trying to take this to the competitive level. I mean, Tam has martial arts background, I've got some sports background. I'm a former like singer, like I would sing. I even relate this to like commentary. Like, if you don't practice, you're not good, and you don't feel good. And so, and I guess that was a blanket statement. You are good. There is also known as like natural talent. But the idea is, if you feel like you're just not quite there, the reality is the more hours you put into it, the more you flex the muscle, the more you're exposed to in different ways of playing and thinking and things like that. Because as you put in those hours to grind the game and try different things and test against different decks or test your own deck that's different and changing, you learn and unlock how you are as a player and what it takes for you personally to succeed, because every player is not the same player. And I do think half of this game is not playing the mechanics of the game, at least at the competitive level. It is playing the player. And that is what makes this game expressive and skillful. And also, that's where the luck factor comes in. We know that we play a card game. We're not going to ignore the fact that luck doesn't have a bias in any sort of game. But this game has so many choices, not just at the skill expression, but in how you choose to enact on that skill expression as you personally as the player and the deck builder and the 3 terms that Tam's used with me, which is pilot, innovator, and
Honer.
Honer. And all 3 of those types of players, I should say, can have success. but you won't know how you are going to find success for yourself personally until you put in the hours. And my only one story to this before I pass it to Tam is literally before I won my first nationals, Tam and I and our friend Jacob Johnson would sit in my card store that I worked at. We would film content for YouTube, and then we would be up, I'm not joking, 6 a.m. some nights. We would be up until 6 a.m. playing universes. And that was when that next event that we grinded for, Tamron top cutted, Jacob Johnson top cutted, and I won the whole damn thing. If you put in the work, it shows rewards. And I would say that about anything in life, not just about universes. But that is what I think it takes to get over the hump. And the reality is, not everyone has the same resources like I did. Me and my two friends jamming games in a card store basement. But the reality is that our game is big enough, and there are resources for people to play online with each other, and you can get that similar feel without even having a locals, and you can show up and you can be a menace at this game. And that's all it takes. It's just time and practice.
This is just the ultimate question, isn't it? Right? Like
How do you
Drake,
win,
thank you
Tim?
for the prime. The snarky answer is exclamation point coaching in chat. If you go on Patreon, I will spend an hour and a half every week with you, and we could talk about it. But to mimic everything that Barrett has said, I do agree with you. I'm gonna hone in on a couple of small points there. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Just jamming a bunch of games is helpful for you understanding your fundamental, but if the games aren't good, then you're just spinning your wheels in the mud rather than actually making any real progress, right? A million Tamisms. You can't coast uphill. Perfect practice makes perfect. All of these things, pita loops, they all culminate in this idea of when me and you, Barrett, were sitting in that event grinding Scorpion versus Cassie Cage. That's what I was on. That's what you were on. When Jacob was playing Liu Kang, which we knew that was going to be the menace. Like it was not about. It was not about how do I make my game plan so good. It is what am I doing into the field and what could possibly be there. And the climate was a little bit different, but it really was actively thinking, truly actively thinking, how do I make it better? I was talking to somebody earlier today about the percentage points of playing the game, and I'll ask both of you. You're both top cut players. The best, most consistent player in the world. Every single game that they've ever played that takes into account every game from their first demo to literally they finished a game as my sentence is finishing. What do you think is the highest percentage win rate of the most consistent player in the entire world? Barrett, there's not a correct answer. Just give me a number.
I think based off of like what I believe in and what I've seen, because even for me, the best percentage rate is still probably only like 75%.
Barlow, same question.
That's the best.
I think I'm even going to go a little lower. I'm going to go like the 65 to 70 range at the absolute top.
Okay. 65 to 70. I think that's fair. I'll go even lower and I'll say we'll say 60. 60 so that I have room to grow. Where does that 60 come from? It comes from playing the game really well. That 60 comes from having a good deck. That 60 comes from having good luck. Your goal to top cut is to take and push these percentage points a little by little by little in these different tiers of I need to make sure that I'm not missing any percent when I'm playing, having my P loops be correct, making sure that whenever the mental load is too high, there is I am making the correct decisions and not just affect this turn, but affect not the micro game, but the macro game. I also need to make sure that I have slight percentage points. David just had an incredibly divisive video go out talking about feel good cards versus real good cards. And I think that his message there has some merit. I think the way that he said it was kind of bad. It was kind of not good. Not using his terminology at all, but the cards that you put in your deck push up these percentage points just a little bit, right? Me including Web of Blades in my pony list this weekend equated to 0.7% of my wins over the course of the weekend. Over the whole grand course of the whole weekend. Because that card, when it touched the board versus this very specific character, which I had prepared for, I got way more value out of it. It is these small little decisions that you get to take and make and see you physically taking these small steps forward that will help equate you into making a top cut. When you take and you look at the player who last season was the most decorated player, Travis Tangeman, that guy's deck constantly had incredible deck building choices over and over and over again. His deck was well constructed and he knew how to pilot it and he knew what to do in certain situations versus everybody else. When I say our game is a combination of chess and poker, I think that's something that we as Universus players don't put in our head enough, is that our game has so much pattern recognition that is just untalked about, and I don't know how to articulate it. How many times have you been in a position where I have my first turn, my build was bad, I have my 3 foundations, I've got a 5 diff attack that's really impactful, and a 4 diff attack that's okay impactful, and then foundations. I need to play a poke in order to start generating some advantage. Do I play the 5 diff? Do I play the 4 diff? The answer is, you play the 4 diff, because you've, in that pattern recognition so many times, you've checked a 3 on this move, committed 2 foundations, and died because of it. If I play the 4 diff, I check a 3, I commit 1 foundation, and I can survive because of it. That is, in the most simple form, pattern recognition. Small percentage points, moving and coaxing up. And so, like, there is not some, rub a lamp, get better, here's how you make it into top cuts. It really, truly is, how do I eke out small percentage points to get closer from Tam's 60 to Barlow's 65 to Barrett's 70-75. And it doesn't have to be all at once. You can move in different categories of the 3 things. So I want to be a better pilot, a better innovator, a better honer. They all can move up, and they don't have to move all up at the same time.
And you ready? That dial on the percentage of how you are and how you feel as a player, percentage points wise, changes every day you pick up the game.
Yeah.
You can learn something, and no matter what you do in life, every day. You should learn something every day. So then I'm going to turn the question to you, Barlow, because you're in the same conversation of you top cut a lot. It's your own question. What do you do personally to keep having the success?
I steal a lot of WUB decks, Barrett. No.
You've figured out the innovation part.
Well, I know, like, initially, as I was getting into competitive, the way I did it is I found a character that I felt overlapped in the I love to play this character, and I think this character is competitive category. I found someone I love to play that I felt was competitive, and then I just played them all the time. I played that one character, it was Amajiki, and I just played Amajiki all the time. I got really, really familiar with Amajiki. Huge shout out to Will Howard when I was new, jamming so many games with me in just the main server. Really taught me the game and like helped me get a lot better. So huge shout out to that guy. And yeah, that was kind of just how I did it. Is I just played a lot of the character I loved that I felt like could compete in the metagame.
Yeah, and I mean the reason I pointed at you is because spoiler alert, again, big Barlow guest fan. I see this guy in Discords and all the different Discords I share with Barlow, always playing this game. Not always, I get it. You're always having fun and stuff like that. But you play this game, and over the past years of you getting into it, have been playing this game a lot.
Yeah.
And every single time, and you're playing against other high caliber players. And I'm not saying like that's the recipe, like, hey, you need to have friends that are also good at the game. That isn't the recipe. I think you can learn a lot from players that are even, I'll use the word, weaker than you, because seeing someone make a decision and figuring out why they made that decision path and how it directly does conflict with something that you would make, there is a learning experience there, not just for them, but also for you. Because sometimes, even as competitive players, we sometimes get lost in the sauce. Oh, I've been playing. Last time I won, I did this thing, and this was how big my deck was, and this was the percentage of attacks I put in my deck. I'm not gonna. That's the recipe. That's how you win. And the reality is that's just not true. Our format's always changing. The players you're playing against are always changing. Your day-to-day luck on playing the game is changing. How your mood is and how you're feeling influences how risky or not risky you're gonna be playing. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. Any feedback is good feedback. Asterisks. Um, and I have seen you play this game a lot. It's just kind of what I'm getting at. And so like you don't just like the game and you don't play the game and you do well. You put your money where your mouth is because of how much you've played the game. And I think what you said in your starting point, finding a character that you really like that is adjacent to being competitive, I think there's a lot of those in our game right now. And so for anybody at home that's listening or watching, and your favorite character is not the Brave from Critical Role because Critical Role got you in there. Well, Tim Keefe just showed up at a $2,500 tournament and top cutted with it and won a die roll. So he walked home with the most money out of anybody. You can do it even with a character that doesn't have as many top cuts as the rest of them do, right? But if you really like Not the Brave, you can do it.
And something in this I'd like to point to is our regional winner from the first 2 regionals this year in North America, Andrew Porat. That guy not only plays a lot, but he also is one of the most dedicated deck honers I've seen. He picks a character and he plays it for a format. He shows up with that character week after week and makes the deck 1% better, a little at a time. Until not only is it a really refined deck, he can play it with his eyes closed.
Correct.
He can just slam those cards on the table. He doesn't need to think too long. He can use his mental energy in other ways during a tournament because he's just so intimately familiar with the cards in his deck.
I think that is such a good way to put it, Barlow, because I would be able to sit here and say the same things. When I won with Cassie Cage and when I won with Tokoyami, I could play that deck with my eyes closed.
I mean, it goes back to that pattern recognition, right? Like the way that you get that pattern recognition is there's only so many combinations of cards you can have in your hand and the order that you would want to play your cards, right? I have 3 attacks. I've got 4 foundations. Obviously, I'm going to play my attacks first and then my foundations. Or obviously, this is not a turn that I'm going to go in. I'm just play my 4 foundations. Like it is so easy. Like the mental load joke is so easy to do. It's so easy to make, but you just compartmentalize what mental load you have to care about. But in order for you to compartmentalize it, you have to know what it is, right? You have to understand that the cards on my board, these are aggressive foundations, these are defensive foundations, these are flow foundations, these are disruptive foundations. I can separate them. They're like I get these crazy shower thoughts, right? I'm a crazy person when it comes to this and teaching the game. I thought about
period.
I'm a crazy person. Period. Thank you for the sub. I thought about making a new player playmat that actually took and in your stage separated it out in 4 zones of aggro, defense, flow, disruption, so that you could take, and when I build my foundations down, I look at my foundations and go, this one gives plus speed. I'm going to put it in my aggro foundation zone. So on my turn, I look at half of my board, and then on their turn, I look at the other half of my board, and it just cuts down on mental load. Whoever's going to get that, I don't know. I think it's probably a bad idea, but it comes from a good point of like, how do I compartmentalize? And you can do this compartmentalizing you can do this compartmentalizing by yourself, right? I put on my face down foundations over here. I put my tenacious foundations not in the same pile as my other committed foundations to make sure. And like all of these things are I don't forget abilities now, right? Like I forgot there was one time where I forgot that I had a tenacious ability versus Jeremy Ray in top cuts of a nationals that Barrett Bryant won, and it stopped Jeremy from killing me. He had to kill me 3 turns later, and I felt so bad that I didn't even want to press my button. It was simply, if your name is Scorpion, spin a momentum, gain 2 health, and he had a lethal move. It was for Xaxes, and I could gain 2 health and survive. That was his last attack. And he's like, oh, I would have played the turn differently if I knew. But like, and so like there is that kind of idea will take and push you to be a better player to just know all of your choices. What are all the buttons I can possibly do? Back to the Peter loop. Perceive, evaluate, decide, act. If I don't know what I have, then I can't decide or act upon that information. I just don't have the choice.
Building upon the pattern detection and stuff like that, I not only just like your own deck, but you change the way that you play with those patterns depending on your matchup. The way that I'm trying to think of characters like right now in Standard. The way that you play against King Ghidorah is different than you approach the game versus Rodan, and it's different than how you approach the game versus Godzilla. And then a side note, someone said in chat, but that means your opponent knows too. I can tell you where I leveled up the most in this game because it was just the truth. The moment I admitted the fact that every time I sit down and play this game, my opponent is always better than me. Because the day that I had to go against Kevin Broberg for the first time in top 16 and beat him, anything is possible in this game. And I am not saying that because I'm a better player than Kevin Broberg. I'm not a better player than Kevin Broberg. But the way that our game works, everyone has to be practicing and performing perfectly at any moment, or anyone can take advantage of you in the game and strategically. The caliber of the player does not matter because that's how skillful and great our game is, like genuinely.
Barlow?
So the point being, who cares if your opponent knows that you have a tenacious foundation?
Yeah, what's up, Tam?
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I definitely resonate a lot with what you're saying. And I will say, along with kind of the compartmentalization part you brought up, Tam, is just like once you get good at that compartmentalization where you can kind of just look at a stage and know what's what, it allows you to devote more of that mental energy to other things, other parts of the game, other interactions. Maybe now you're thinking about hand traps and that sort of thing. I remember one time I was playing against, again, Andrew Porat. And so he's so familiar with his deck and he's so familiar with everything's going on. He knew I was playing Runaway and he just juggled combined firepower to the top of his discard every enhanced step. And that's just like not something like that's on anybody's radar almost at all. And that's just something he did the whole game like as like a reflex. He's like, okay, I know this doesn't count towards progressive. I know you're playing Runaway. This is going to be on top of my discard pile all the time. And that's like crazy, like that edge that he could give himself.
And when he kept doing that on stream at regionals, and I remember because Sam and I would bring it up, and we're like, this is such perfect play that we're talking about. Tam says you should, it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice. And then he brings it to the game and then shows it on screen so that commentators like Tam and I can talk about. When he did that and he showed it off on stream, I never once then, because this is me as the competitive player, every time I played with stuff that juggled like that, I always put combined firepower on top of my deck because of what Andrew Porat showed me. Because you're right, something I wouldn't think about normally otherwise. And I learned something from him because you should just always be doing that because there's no reason not to. And that's why he's the better player than me.
And I think that's something that's so cool is even as like a national winning player, even as experienced players, there's still so much to learn about our game. And I think that's part of what makes it great.
The blanket statement I like to use is our game is never solved. Never solved. And that's not just including when talking about like deck building and the meta, but it's never solved because there are so many geniuses that play our game that will not just take a deck that you know is meta and be phenomenal with it, but they'll be innovative with it. They'll do something with the deck that you've never seen before, even though the character might top cut 1 billion times, because they themselves took that deck that everybody is playing for and leveled it up and did something different with it because they're geniuses. Because we have so many amazing players.
Thank you for the Raid 4 Checkcast. Greatly appreciate it. Hope your podcast was real good, not feel good. I agree. I think there's something to be said about another way to level up your gameplay is just like VOD review and such. But there's a million factors, right? How do you want to get better at top cuts? Eat a good breakfast beforehand, right? Like
Yeah.
it's as Barrett said, it's a sport. Make sure your brain is healthy. Drink water.
Guess what, guys? Maybe you might do better at the tournament if you didn't stay up till 3 a.m. the night before playing a bunch of games.
No, but I don't know what deck I'm playing. No, but I don't know what deck I'm playing. So, no, but
and if you got some sleep.
Yeah, I had to spend 7 hours putting my deck list in on the UGN. So obviously, my time is allotted from 9 p.m. until 5 in the morning because I have to type in how many Jaegers am I allowed to play, Barrett? How many? Not according to UGN. If you put 5, it's a not legal deck.
This is a meme to end this question with, just so it's not just the Barlow guest show. There was a meme because if you know Nathan DeWalt, I love the kid. He's a great guy. He beats himself up a lot and he psychs himself out and he gets nervous and he gets anxious, right?
I love it.
And instead of taking his pills that make him a normal human being like the rest of us do, he worries. And so I remember we were driving to an event, and I think this is either a meme or I'm making this up, but all we did in the car ride over was play positive affirmations on the radio and on the speaker.
So
and
funny.
I'm not saying it as a joke. Some people really benefit from that. And if I would ask everyone in chat right now, how many of you listen to positive affirmations before you go play in a Universes tournament? I bet you none of them would say I do. Maybe give it a try, Maybe it'll be the difference. Maybe that'll get you over the hump.
I listen to rap music. That's the same thing, right? It's the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Barlow, thank you, buddy. Final thoughts before we kick you out of here.
I guess just to kind of wrap this section up is I think regardless of how much you level up your game and how good you improve and stuff like that, you can always just have a bad day. You can get a little unlucky. You can check a little bad. So I think even if you've showed up to an event and you feel like this is my event, I have the deck, I have the practice, it's okay to get unlucky. It's okay not to top cut. It happens to literally everyone. It happens multiple events in a row and to everyone. So don't stress it.
I love the question. Thank you, Barlow. And I expect you to see you in Top Cuts.
Well, yeah,
he's gonna go 3 drop angle.
He's gonna be in Top Cuts every Tuesday, starting on the 8th. As we draft.
Heck yeah, brother.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good one.
All right.